Are you familiar with Jeff Booth and his book, The Price of Tomorrow?
Yeah.
And he wrestles with some of these issues as well, right? That technology obviously wants to drive, we're kind of describe technology. The purpose of technology is to drive prices lower, right? We satisfy consumer wants, better, faster, cheaper. That's the whole point. But the inflationary fiat regime depends on prices going up to erode the government's real debt burden basically over time and externalize the cost of that debt via inflation. And so his argument in general is like these two colossal forces are just fundamentally at odds and something's going to break. How does that layer into your thesis in the book? And like, which way do you see this thing going? I mean, not to color your response, but like I would say historically, it seems like technology kind of ends up dictating in the long run, right? Like governments step in and they do what they're going to do, but, or what, not just governments, right? Whatever the dominant institutional paradigm is, they will exert top-down influence to the extent they can. But when there's a major technological shift underfoot, that seems to determine which way society goes, basically. So like how, it seems like we're coming out of this analog industrial age paradigm, right? With, mainstream media and central banking and, even governance, right? We have large central governments and we're moving more into this kind of decentralized media paradigm with internet and podcast. And, we've got decentralized money with Bitcoin. It's much more of a many to many model versus kind of a one to many model if I'm using database terminology. So how do you see us, whether this is in the book or just your personal views, like how do you see us progressing technologically into the 21st, 22nd centuries? Are we going to change our institutional realities? Or do you think institutional realities are going to change the course of technology?
Yeah, well, I do think, the natural course, and it is a little bit in the book, there's a scene where one of the characters talks about the central banker's greatest secret and tells another character, if you ever figure it out, you'll understand. And it's basically that the natural course of things should be deflation. The Fed should be targeting negative 2% prices, right?
Well, the Fed shouldn't exist. Right?
It shouldn't exist. It shouldn't exist. Exactly. You're perfectly right. Yeah. But the natural course of things, that's what it should be. And inflation, it's not just about deflating away the debt as well. It also, when you look at Hamilton, our first Treasury Secretary, there were revenue problems in a democracy, right? So a king could say, I want taxes, and if you don't pay me, I'm going to send my knights to ride into your village and we'll get the taxes. And very early in our republic, we're like, okay, let's have taxes. Well, let's tax whiskey, right? The famous whiskey rebellion. Within years after the democracy is born, people in the democracy, it was an all-out rebellion. It was, we're not in the union anymore. Guns were blazing. It had to be put down, and it was over taxes, just as the United States with the tea tax.
Founding of the country.
Yeah. And so Hamilton, he made so many choices that set us on this financial situation. One of the big ones he made was originally the idea was that national debt should be handled, bonds should be handled kind of like a mortgage, where each payment is not just interest but also principal, and at the end it gets paid. And the decision was made, no. We're just going to pay coupons of interest, and then at the end, 10 years, we just roll it over into a new one. And that set the stage that the debt was never going to be paid off. Andrew Jackson actually did, but all of these fundamental choices, and the other thing that was set there was we're never going to be able to raise tax revenue to the extent we need to build a strong federal government by openly doing it. And we can do it through inflation. And that was what set us. And we had massive inflation post-revolution. We had massive inflation, of course, during the revolution with the Continental, which went down 99%. That was the revolutionary currency. So inflation is nothing new to this country. It's been part and parcel of it from the beginning, and it even goes back into colonial times. And so this is just a continuation of that theme. And there's been periods where there's more sound money, periods where less sound money. And we've gotten to another one of those breaking points where the money gets so unsound, like something has to be done. And I think the last time we saw that really happen, in the 70s when this idea of, oh yeah, we've got it backed by gold, that just couldn't be done anymore. And we needed a massive revaluation. And the only way they did that was through, like 10 years of on and off massive inflation. And I think we need another massive revaluation. And that's why, despite the best hopes and we're going to control inflation and we're going to get this under control, the dollar is just overvalued. It's still overvalued. It needs to come back to what it really should be in a fair world. And it's being overvalued by all of this manipulation, by the Fed buying, the balance sheet's at about 7 trillion now, but it was 9 trillion, by the Treasury issuing a lot of T-bills that then the banks buy, and then the banks go ahead and reverse repo it with the Fed, and then they take that and loan out against it. So it's not really eating up capital. Like, all of these things are starting to get to breaking points. And as that gets more and more clear, I think Bitcoin and gold are going to emerge as, the only assets that do what the problem is demanding.
Yes.
Not the S&P, not real estate.
Right.
Not art.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. Again, people are just trying to conserve purchasing power over time, broadly speaking, but all the options have been eliminated from them, right? You can't, well, physical gold, I guess physical gold is an option, but it's just not very practical, right? It's not integrated with financial markets. Now we have Bitcoin that's increasingly integrated with financial markets. So that's another alternative. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.